My name is Rabbi Yosef Trauper, and I sit before you with great trepidation because I think there's a tremendous responsibility that I'm taking by sharing things with you. And I am afraid because what if I say the wrong thing? What if I misquote a story? What if I misinterpret a Ma'amar Chazal? And with that in mind, I ask that you please guide me. If something I say is incorrect or a misquote or misinterpretation, please share that with me. But I humbly submit before you that at this time I wanted to gather some of my own thoughts. I was zocha to learn from a Rebbe, Rav Asher Zelig Rubinstein, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kal Shavracha, who lived and breathed emunah in everything that he did. And they say a story about, I believe it was a Chazon Ish who was describing three great people around him. And he said Rav Dessler, who was a good friend of his, he said Rav Dessler knows Hashem in his head. Because Rav Dessler was a brilliant intellectual. He had many other components too, but he said that's how he described him. And he said, Rav Eli Alpian, who was one of the greatest Bali Musar at the time, remember the Chazon Ish died in the early 50s, he said he knows Hashem in his heart. Rav Eli Alpian was a tremendous Bali Musar who lived with Hashem. And he said, Rechatzkel, he knows and feels Hashem in his hands. Rav Asher used to always quote that part, and he would say, V'haya yadav emunah, his hands were faithful. And so all of us need a way to connect with Hashem. Of course, all those Gedolim all connected with Hashem in their hearts and minds and in their hands. But we're all looking for something to grab onto. I once heard a story. I've seen it printed, but I don't recall which Rebbe it was about. But it was a Rebbe who was going through the Holocaust, and he had a very, very loyal chassid that was following him. And at one point, the Nazis did something very brutal. They were marching with him, and they told him, they said, everyone needs to jump over from this mountain to that mountain. If you can't make it, you're dead. And if you can make it, then you're good. And so what happened was the Rebbe made it, and he survived. And the Chassid made it, and he survived. And so afterwards, the Chassid came over to the Rebbe, and he said to him, he said, I want to thank you, because the only way I made it over was I was holding on to you. I don't know what that means exactly. He said, I was holding on to your lapel, and I was able to make it over because of you. And he said, Rebbe, he said, tell me, what were you holding on to? How did you make it? And he said, I was holding on to the Zechuyos of my forefathers, and to Avram, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and of course, I was holding on to the Ribono Shalom. So ultimately, it was the Bitachon that made them both cross. I don't know what that story means even, but I heard it when I was a kid, and I saw it printed. I believe it. But all I do know is that in times of challenge, we need something to hold on to. And when I used to speak to my Rebbe, it says, Chayav Adam Lahakol Pnei Rabo, you have to visit your Rebbe over Yantif. I used to call Rav Asher Zatzal before many times a year, and I still keep up that by calling his wife, and she asked me if I'm still learning Rav Asher's Torah and I still remember him, and I said, of course, he's part of me, and she said it's important to share with the world everything that he taught us, and so I humbly submit this in front of you. Rav Asher one time invited a good friend of his, or Shmuel Dishon, who was a big Baal Bitachon, and that Rav Asher always told us to learn from him and understand him. He's a Rosh Shiva in Eretz Yisrael, and he invited him to speak. And in that speech, he quoted a Yalkut Shmoni in Yol, a very, very fascinating one. It's based on Yerushalmi and other sources. I want to read the whole thing in context because it's just, I believe that it's so relevant here. So the Yalkut Shmoni is in Taf Kuf Lamed Zayin. So it's talking about in the time of Mashiach. V'haya kol asher yikra b'shem Hashem yimalit. Anyone that calls in the name of Hashem, he'll be saved. So the Gemara. So first, one measure says that how do you call the name of Hashem? What does that mean? So it says you emulate him. Hashem is a rachum, and you emulate in Chalon of Rachum Hashem af ata aseh matnas chinam. Your generosity is the zechuyos that are going to save you. Okay, I'll get to the part that Rishmul Baron quoted in his speech, but it's just there's a lot of Ma'amar Chazal on that exact pasuk. Then the Medrash continues, a different Ma'amar Chazal. Yehuda Meshem Rav Yirmiyah says that normally when a person goes into a patron or a king or a powerful person's house, you can't just walk in, pishom suddenly. No, you have to wait by the door and knock, tell the slave, tell the servant, tell someone in the household that you want to speak to the king, and then you'll get called in if you're lucky. Although Kodesh Baruch Hu came, that's not the way it works with Hashem. In Balachat Sarah, if a trouble comes to you, you don't call out to the office or to the representative or to a Ben Bais. No, Lo tzavach, you don't call Michal, Gabriel. What's the Medrash supposed to say, right? El tzavach li. Hashem says, call to me, v'ani onalach, and I'll answer you. So that's just a little introduction of what it means. Achol asher yikra b'shem Hashem yimaleit. That's what it means, to emulate Hashem with chesed and to call to Hashem. Rav Pinchas says there was once a story that there was a man who was coming from a city. He was traveling during a very, very tumultuous time in Rome, and I don't even know if this was a Jewish guy. It's irrelevant. Pagu Be Romoi, he got in trouble with the police. A Roman powerful person bumped into him, and he was going to be killed. Amrlei, but this traveler said, Min de Papanisana. I'm affiliated with Papanis. We have no idea who that is. All the Mefarshim that I've looked at, I don't know any shot who that is. He was some powerful person back then that people were scared of. Upatrua, and he got off the hook. They said, "Oh, sorry, we're not going to touch you." So what says the Chazal, and this is the part that Shmuel Baron quoted. Uma im shenitl b'basar v'dam. You have a simple guy, this guy from Chamsa, this city man. He used Papanis, and that was his pass. He used that name. It's a vulnerable human being who's long dead, right? Nitzal, and he's saved. So surely, if you use Hashem, that's your password in life, that you're always relying on Him, right? Lo kol shekain, Hashem is going to take care of you. And that's an amazing thing, that in life, and this is referring to the end of days, which we feel like we're there. And like the pasuk says, Kol asher yikra b'shem Hashem yimaleit. That's how you're going to be saved. That's what Shmuel Baron taught us. But he said something else besides that. And again, the Bitachon blast, which I'll explain what it is, but it's meant to inspire us to remember that Bitachon Hashem, who's always watching over us. There's a Mishnah in Kalim. It says something very fascinating. It tries to define different kalim, whether different vessels, if they're makabel tuma, based on different components. And so it goes on a tangent, and it talks about a kelev hayam. Now, if you're not someone that studies Mishnayos or Gemara, because this is meant for everybody, don't worry. There's nothing lumdish here. So what's a kelev hayam? It's actually kind of funny. Just translate it. A dog of the sea. It's probably a seal. They call them pups for a reason. So the Mishnah says it's a dispute there whether it's considered a sea animal or a land animal. And then one Manda Amar says, I guarantee you it's a sea animal. He says, how do you know? How do you prove that? Because when they're in trouble and when they're scared, look where they run to. They run into the water. Now, you could argue with me, and especially those who are zoologists, that they run to the water because maybe it's safer and less predators. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But Seder Shmuel Baron, a tremendous yesod in life, that I heard this from almost 20 years ago, and I still remember it every day. Where do you run when you're in trouble? If you run to Hashem when you're in trouble, that shows who you really are. And if you don't run to Hashem when you're in trouble, Seder Shmuel Baron, because this is what I heard, then you need to work on that and make sure you are running to the right source who can really help you. And so that's what it is. That little sea pup, that little seal, whatever it is, Kelev Hayam, where does it run to when it's in trouble? That's what shows who it is. Bitachon Blast is dedicated to this exact principle. What I hope to take is I'm going to start with Rav Asher's Torah. Be'ezer Hashem, that's a good place to start. And I want to start with Wings of Faith, which is Rav Asher on Chovos Halvava Shar Bitachon, and talk about Rav Asher Rubenstein. And he's a man that had a profound impact on my life. Every day I sit, especially now in quarantine, and I sit in my living room, and you have Rav Asher right in the middle. I have the Panovich Rav on the top left, who's his Rebbe, and many, and the Chafetz Chaim, who is a Panovich Rav's Rebbe. And this is the Masorah that I have. There's many other great people there, but other Rabbeim of mine, and they're Rabbeim. But suffice it to say, welcome to my home, and we're all stuck together in quarantine. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to understand what we're doing here. And so I've divided this into two parts. There's the Bitachon Blast, which is going to be, we're going to start with Wings of Faith and focus on, which is based on Chovos Halvava Shar Bitachon. We're going to talk it through. Yes, you could get the book, you could read it, you could listen to the podcast, it's all there. You could choose whichever format you want. But I want to share approximately, I'm not sure how it's going to evolve. I'm going to start with about a 5 to 10 minute weekly thing once a week, where you could come here and you could listen to it whenever you want. You could come live if you want. If you like that, you could ask questions live. And we'll record it, Be'ezer Hashem, and we'll put it all up for everybody to be inspired on. And you'll give me feedback as to how to develop it. Is it too long? Is it too short? People tell me all the time I speak too fast, and I really work on that. But I feel like there's so much to share. But if we just take a moment to find something that inspires us, to recognize that when we turn to Hashem, Hashem is going to take care of us and help us succeed. That's what we're looking for. We're looking to be able to turn to Hashem and Yimaleit. That's how we're going to be saved in all of our tsaras, physical, emotional, financial, spiritual, all the different challenges we're going through in life. At this time, this is a time to turn towards Hashem. So I thank you so much for joining me in this Bitachon blast. You might be wondering what the Parsha perspectives are, so that's again going to be something more geared for the Talmidim of Rav Usher who want to hear his style and his Torah. But for here, some Parsha thoughts that I have a couple of years of notebooks that in quarantine I've made a little project to go through, and a couple of my 5 years that I learned in Rav Usher, I wrote a few things down, and the interesting thing is that I always had in mind to publish it. And so I think that I wrote it with a little bit more of an intention, but I had a better thing in mind, which Rav Usher told us. He said, listen to it so you could do it. And so that's what makes the biggest impact on us. It's not to say that I fulfilled everything there. That's a lifetime of godless that Rav Usher taught us about. But I want to share some of those ideas on the Parsha. So, there's many people, many of my chaverim, Meir Rosner, and many other great people that send out every week from Rav Usher. If you listen to it in his voice, he's going to say it a lot better than me, obviously. But for those that maybe don't have time to listen to an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, I want to condense that and give you a quick Parsha perspective for the week as well. And we have a lot of Parshas and a lot of jam-packed things. So thank you so much for joining, and I hope that you'll find inspiration. And if you do, please share it with other people. And your feedback is really, really important to me. So thank you, and may we all grow together. And again, I start off that I'm just humbled by the amount of people that have suggested that they want to hear Rav Usher's Torah. And I procrastinated, one, because ultimately I said, who am I to do this? But then I got busy and I had plenty of other excuses. And I just heard from a lot of my friends, they said, who are you to do it? You're no one. And I said, okay, great. As long as we're all clear on that, now I'll do it. So here I am. I'm offering to you some ideas that I hope you'll find inspiring. And I look forward to learning together from all of us. Thank you so much for joining.